Shortly, we'll bring you our first conversation that focuses on the compressed natural gas development, and then from the angle of, well, one, investment, and the second is, if you like, availability of refuel stations where those who now have their vehicles converted and those who are going to ultimately do that conversion can access with some ease of some, well, measure of ease, refueling for their different vehicles. Government says in the next 18 months, the plan is to add 150 more CNG refuel centers across the country. Hopefully, that also happens. Now, the authorities, I mean, the head of the initiative, the PC NGI, now says to Nigerians that at least $491 million has been attracted by way of investment into this CNG initiative. But there's a long road to cover because the target for the authority, one of their part of their mandate is to ensure that they hit a $1 billion mark by the end of 2025. That's a tall order, which we're going to discuss in detail shortly. But there was this sad story this morning, basically across social media platforms, of a young lady who was said to have died in her room, well, not in her sleep. The story says that a scaffold in the compound that was supposed to hold a water tank collapsed for reasons we are not aware of, and then he kills her right inside her room. I had seen that happen before, well, in this country, yes. But what it tells you is that we need to do more work with regards to due diligence, right? With regards to how we place premium on lives, whether those lives are your children, your spouses, your parents, your siblings, generally your relatives, or even your neighbors or your tenants. Very important because in the last, say, 12 or so years, I've taken out time to look at houses where I live, and the first thing I look at is what is the quality of the fitting. Look at the electrical fitting, for example. Look at even plumbing. You know, some of them, you move into the house in a matter of few weeks, I mean very few weeks, things start breaking off. You're wondering, is it like I'm the one who's careless? Or is it like these are substandard materials that we use? And when you check, 99% of those cases, it's not the occupant of the house that was careless. It was just a matter of substandard materials being used. But again, these are issues we need to continue to talk about. In the meantime, we understand that our guest has joined us this morning to discuss investment-specific issues regarding the compressed natural gas initiative that has been on in this country for a while now. Our guest joins us live via Zoom from Lagos this morning, Dr. Wisdom Enag, Senior Energy Consultant. I want to say a big thank you to you for making our time to join us on short notice this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, sir.
Great.
Good morning.
This will be the first time we're having this conversation. Incidentally, my colleague, Queen Agaba, will also throw a few questions your way. But let's hit the road running quickly. First of all, the last time we talked about this, we just in passing talked about investment, but that has become ever more critical now. The coordinator of the PCNGI says, look, so far we've done about $491 million in terms of investment. However, we understand that the ultimate objective is to hit a $1 billion mark by the end of 2025. Talk to us about whether or not this is a tall order.
No, not at all. I think it's not a tall order. And I think, there's every reason to believe that we can hit it. In fact, we can hit more than that. The reason is, if you look at the gas, we've got, an opportunity to develop it because we've got a lot of potential uses for gas. I'm careful not to use the word gas market because gas market will allude to the fact that you have provided the enablers to translate a market need to an actual market. And those enablers are not there. We're trying to stimulate those enablers. But be that as it may, I think we've come a long way, and we do have the population. So that's one thing. We do also have a lot of initiatives being earmarked by the federal government for funding support. And I think those funding support is important to know from the CBN. Those funding supports are not meant to, be the sole funding vehicles for CNG investments. What they're meant to do is to allow people access funds to perhaps achieve what I call proof of concept on whatever small scale, and then that would then create the right investment proposition that should attract more investments for scalability. So it is important to understand that even the regulatory provisions as well have been done to engender gas investment. So I personally believe that we are on the pathway, but it's quite slow. Again, for example, how many of those refilling stations or plants have been dotted around the states outside Lagos and Abuja? That's one of the statistics we need to look at. What can we do? What areas of synergy and opportunities for development subsist for us to harness between the federal and state government in dishing out some of these initiatives quicker enough? Because if you look at states like Akwa Ibom, for example, where I'm from, you will not get the same speed you get with Lagos or Abuja, but definitely there's a large market that or potential market that has a need for the gas, for CNG gas, especially with the cost of PMS. So I think it is important for us to look at how we can scale faster. But to answer your question, is it possible? Yes, it is possible. We nearly have all the enablers for that. We just have to work harder to get this dished out. There are a lot of people waiting for it to come, and we need these CNG initiatives for so many reasons. I mean, states now are looking at running their power stations. A lot of that is going to be run on gas, on CNG. So the faster we can roll some of these initiatives out, the better. One question on my mind is which is going to come first, the chicken or the egg? So which is going to come first? Is it the CNG, for example, the vehicular users that are going to stimulate the investors that will produce the gas, or is it the gas producers that would now incentivize people to go and convert their vehicles? And it's a bit of both. Sometimes you have to get the government stimulating that growth, getting those stations at the various levels of the state producing gas, and then people will see the need to build or retrofit their existing petrol stations to have CNG, and people can start converting the vehicles they have to CNG. So we have a long way to go, but it is possible.
Before Queen Johnson, you mentioned in passing about the issue of whether or not we've been able to dot, cities across this country with CNG refill points. The government says one of its targets is to do 150 of such refill points in the next 18 months. How feasible is that?
It is feasible. Well, it depends on the model they want to run. And I'll give you a very simple model that is feasible. So assume that you have let's for the sake of this explanation, let me define two terms: a daughter station and a mother station. A daughter station simply warehouses the gas in large quantities or gets access to produce gas, and then is able to dish it out. It doesn't serve any vehicle, just it's able to send it out for it to be distributed across the various refilling points, which we'll call the daughter station. And the daughter station is where you can then bring a vehicle and then get served. Now, one simple model the government could build is to go build daughter stations to serve various vehicles. And that could be done maybe about 3 per state or thereabout. And then build a central mother station with a very large capacity. Why am I advocating for a large capacity? It means that even if that state isn't producing gas, like having a CNG plant, assume a case of maybe Akwa Ibom, and then assume a case of building a mother station there, one mother station and 3 daughter stations that can save vehicles across the 3 senatorial districts. Now, what you could do is you could have a schedule depending on what you calculate the utility rates to be like. You could have a schedule where vehicles coming with compressed natural gas from, say, Port Harcourt, and then they fill up the mother station regularly, and the mother station would then be dispensing to the daughter stations. Now, remember that model, as I said, is quicker, and the reason it's quicker is because you do not have to go and start developing the gas fields and having gas pipelines and then having a gas CNG plant. That would take longer. So they could literally achieve this using this sort of model where we use what we call virtual pipelines, the CNG trucks, and begin to transport things from where we already have an existing CNG plants down to areas where there's a need, there's a market, but there is no CNG plant. But if we're talking about developing fields, putting pipelines which are the more permanent solutions, that's going to take a while. But I think we can start from this other model that I have, sort of talked about, and then build up our capacity to where we can now have operational pipelines and operational fields exclusively serving the gas needs and the gas markets.
Your contribution so far. So while we think that the CNG initiative is commendable, particularly with the fact that the cost of having to fill your tank is way lesser compared to fueling your car, many people or drivers have decried, the expenses, how expensive it is to convert their vehicles from fuel to CNG. What do you think we can do, what the government can do to maybe help, better help people convert from fuel to CNG? Or speed up that process?
I think the government are already trying to do as much as they can by, they can only do more of that, subsidizing the kits and making them more affordable. The government could roll, as I like to say, the government could, get a scheme in place that allows for zero, interest rates. People could, access funding. And the way this funding works in other climes is that you go to your bank, you sign up that you want to get on one of the green energy initiatives. It's a green energy funding, and then your bank doesn't give you any money. They literally give the money to a third party person that will come in and retrofit this thing for you. And then you bring your vehicle, they retrofit it for you, and there's a period, I think about 2 to 3 years for you to pay it up. Is deducted from the money that comes at source, for which they would have done their assessment to ensure that you can actually pay that off. And then this money is deducted in amounts that are so small that you may not feel it as badly as you would if you were to buy it outrightly. And then that conversion is done at a 0% interest rate, and then you can pay off. And I think that's a very good starting point, because if we can start this, then we can target perhaps the salary earners that are getting some sort of income and the business people that are getting some sort of income. The loan market in Nigeria has matured. People access all sorts of loans at all sorts of interest rates. So I think the government can put in 0% interest rate funding to support people for conversion. That's on one part. The other part is that we can also help employers incentivize the whole idea of conversion by offering some tax credit to companies that have certain quota of people that they have been able to support in their company, either through some sort of counterpart funding, where the person brings some amount, like 50%, and the company matches it to support them with the conversion. So there are all sorts of initiatives that different countries have put together. The other thing would be looking to quickly through the NCDMB, where we have the local content arm of the oil and gas industry, for us to quickly domesticate the manufacturing and certification of these kits. It's really important, because sometimes you ask people to convert and they're asking you, let's even look at the basic thing like, where do I test my cylinder, because I do not want an explosion on my hands. So how do I handle that bit? There's also the conversation around, making sure that how do I get, the kits that are not imported, because some of them, those importations make those kits quite expensive. So people are asking, are they Nigerian variants? And even when you sold some variants that are supposedly the cheaper ones, they are not safe enough, and you don't know this. So can we possibly have the manufacturing in country? Those are all things that will add together to make it much cheaper for the average Nigerian.
Well, we hope that something the government happen to take up this initiative and maybe bring some sort of relief one way or the other. We've had long queues, similar to what we have in fuel stations since the start of CNG. The initiative. So yesterday, particularly yesterday, we experienced long queues along major parts of Abuja where we have CNG stations. What can we do? Why do we still have, that challenge of having to queue for gas as we queue for fuel as well? And, how do we ensure that, we don't get to have as much issue around getting gas like we do for fuel?
Yeah, you're right. There is clearly a situation where the need outweighs the supply, and that's exactly what's going on. There's a comparative case, right, that has been created, which is that we do need gas because it's way cheaper to manage, from an operational cost standpoint, compared to PMS. So it is that has been well established. One way we can, do to be able to relieve the queues that you've seen is for us to have a lot of it dotted around. Obviously, there is a high demand for it. And as we grow, we're going to see a lot more of that as people begin to convert. So I think the government needs to start expanding, but also because it's a queue, it also calls for private people to come in, because typically this is what happened in the US. The government started out, the market got stimulated, people observed that there were so many queues always asking for CNG, and around the environment they began to build CNG stations across to decongest those areas. And as those ones got clogged up, because more people saw that there were more supply of CNG stations across and began to convert, as those ones got clogged up, other people came in and opened up more refueling stations to decongest, and that was the way, so much more like a ripple effect. That was the way that a lot of the markets did open up for CNG. So essentially, I think that's even an opportunity for private sectors, for the government alike, to look at the indices required for them to make investment decisions to expand the footprint of the various CNG refilling stations.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Wisdom Enang, for your contribution to the topic of, driving critical investment to scale as regards to, the CNG initiative. We'll definitely love to have you again, maybe on Business Point, where, we get to have more time to, look at different angles and discuss, further. We hope that you grant us that request.
Absolutely. Just call on me anytime and I'll be there. Thank you very much. It's a big pleasure to speaking to you and your colleague. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day ahead. Well, that's how much we can take out the conversation. He raised,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, brilliant points there raised about not just investment, but also availability, access, and, off the camera, I mean, you and I talked about those who need to get off the ground with regards to conversion, cost implication for them. Not everybody can pay right from their pockets and all of that. What are the options we have? And he just mentioned one that is, very feasible, where you approach a bank, for instance. The bank doesn't give you cash outright. Instead, they approach, again, a third-party entity that does the conversion for you, and you can spread the payment for as long as 3 years, and you almost don't feel the pinch, because it's just like a bit of your money that will be taken by way of repayments every other month. And that's fair. But in all, the point being made is that the CNG initiative is starting out on a very good footing, regardless of the teething problems that we may have noticed here and there. All right, let's take a quick break, everyone. We have much more to talk about in the course of the program. Do stay with us.
Well, many thanks for staying with us. If you've just joined us, this is Global Morning here on Global Television. And right about our second discussion, we have in the studio Comrade Ogako Dominic, who is a civil society advocate. He is the president, Civil Society for Good Governance, and he's right here with us in the studio. Many thanks for joining me on the studio, sir.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure having you on the studio. Well, as regards the protest yesterday, there were issues raised, concerns raised, particularly the area of governance, the hardship in the economy, and then another issue raised was the issue of the rivers crisis that has also spanned the protest. But we want to hear from you. What were, these issues?
Thank you once again for these are very burning issues, and it's timely. There are genuine demands, very valid, and so I feel that this interface would kind of give my own perspective on the issues. Firstly, let me say that what the Take Back Your Country protest is all about, it's very valid. Even the blind can actually see what is going on in Nigeria. All these issues are very palpable. And as civil rights advocates, as civil society practitioners, it is part of the tenets of the practice to see that government is held accountable at every level and at every point in time. So it would amount to being docile, not to activate some of these norms of the practice of our civil rights movements all over the world, not just in Nigeria. So I align myself with their demands as a Nigerian and as one who is not just a Nigerian from afar, a Nigerian who lives in Nigeria, feels a pulse of the nation at every point in time. So these demands are very genuine, are very, very genuine. And because without this, it will amount to having a society that is run like an empire and would raise issues as to whether we want to continue with basic democratic norms. So for us, they are very germane, they are valid. We totally align with it. Our concern, though, is that it should not be taken or taken over or infiltrated or be seen, or it should not be an avenue to drive a narrative that would further balkanize a very fragile nation as a country. So those are the concerns that should. So I align with it. Thank you.
Okay, talk to us about these demands and then the importance of these demands. Although there had been statements and concerns from the federal government about the timing of these demands, but I want you to talk to us about these demands from the Take It Back movement.
Yes, as you can see, whatever these demands are, like I said, they are very germane. The ones that have been isolated by Take It Back movement, they are the ones that are on the front burner. For instance, the economy. I'm even more concerned about the economy, the harsh economic realities that is hitting every one of us in our faces. As Nigerians, that is our chief concern. The political aspect of their demand is a different ballgame altogether. But if you talk about the economy, for instance, yes, this administration, with the removal of fuel subsidy and the flotation of the naira, brought about a lot of other challenges. Inflation rose very high for the first time. Things went like triple the prices and all that. And so it changed the entire landscape, however you want to look at it. However, we also understand that the administration is not totally sleeping. I like to be very balanced. I want to say that between that time, there have been some level of improvement in the economy. From the time that what fuel subsidy was removed, naira was floated. You saw that it looked like the inflation will continue rising, but somehow it got to a point and it plateaued. And at that level, we see some level of it coming, declining, kind of, but it is highly insignificant. It does not reflect the true position. It does not amount to bringing some succor to the hardship that is experienced by Nigerians. So you see, every Nigerian can relate with this, whether you're rich, whether you're poor. Are you getting me? Because they are affected to a certain level, and this is part of what we are saying, that it is this inclusivity or exclusivity, as the case may be, that Nigeria government must be seen to be practicing what they are preaching, not just in terms of theory, not getting to rest on their oars even when they make very little improvement. And so you see, for that you can relate. Even you as a Nigerian, you can relate that things are not the way they used to be. Life is getting harsh. When it looks like there's no color, there is no hope for the uncommon person. Talk more of the people who are back without hope before now. Do you understand what I mean? And government has not been able to communicate in plain terms the timeline as to when Nigerians should expect the improvement that they have promised us ab initio.
Okay, what makes this protest different from the protest we had in 2020, the End Bad Governance protest? Of course, we've had protests here and there, but what makes this particular Take It Back movement protest different from other protests?
Well, as a civil rights practitioner, I don't, all protests are the same, as long as they can meet the genuineness of the protesters, and that's where the concern is. That's where the concern is. It should not be politicized. It should not become a tool for, okay, let's talk about the cyberbullying or cyber whatever demand that they are making. There is a give and take. There are actually people who are using the cyberspace to create some form of negative narrative about government, using it as a weapon to ostracize some aspect of our national existence, putting it at risk. That too is a ballgame, is another thing altogether. But the concerns that have been raised by these protesters are also very genuine. We see that there are high number of cases that relates to, it looks like the government is trying to use that bill now to gag practitioners, people who naturally should be demanding accountability from their leaders. So it looks like they are not too comfortable with this, and so the easy way out is to, through the instrumentality of the law, try to gag a lot of people. Are you getting me? And whether you like it or not, that leads to some level of lack of freedom of information. The information flow becomes halfway. People now become scared. People tend to become very timid with regards to their social corporate responsibility of holding government accountable at all level.
Okay. And there are also concerns that another focal person in this protest would be Sowore, who is a politician, and then there are questions around: is this protest not, politicized? Is this, and Sowore has been, in and out of protests, has always been in the forefront of protests like this. So the question of Sowore being, a front man in this protest, isn't it politicized? Aren't there political inclinations to these?
Okay, let me answer you. I didn't want to mention names. If you see, I've been trying to avoid mentioning names. But given that you have been able to mention Showore's name, that raised the red flag and is part of what we are saying. Does it mean that Sowore does not have the right as a Nigerian, even though he has contested the election? I feel it's even a prime place to lead a protest of this nature. you can see that this government lacks opposition. I'm trying to be very balanced at this point in time. And so if Sowore is right as a Nigerian, he's still a Nigerian, forget that it should be a thing of joy that after contesting election and doing all that he did, and he's still trying to, as much as possible, to hold government accountable. It tells you that he is not a write-off. He is not a persona non grata. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have the requisite credentials to lead a protest of this nature. Trying to downplay his effort would amount to undermining the giftings and the good sides of whatever he's doing. So, well, that is the politicization that I'm talking about. Trying to, now throw banana peels on his way to kind of disparage his personality before the public and make it look like he's running his personal agenda. But the issues he's raising, are these issues germane? Are they genuine? That's the point that we should be looking at. Not necessarily, somebody must come up, somebody must bear the card, somebody must be able to raise the flag, somebody must say no, it shouldn't be this in this way. So faulting the fact that it's coming from Sowore, there is nobody that is totally, if you bring anybody now, I tell you, people will look for the same reasons to want to actually diffuse that person's integrity, diffuse that person's image, diffuse his contributions, make it look less, and try to downplay the effort in the short term and even in the long term.
Oh well. Another concern raised is the rivers crisis and the need for a reinstatement of, those who need to be there. There are also questions and concerns from, public and analysts who say, okay, if we have the issue of rivers crisis, why not we have a protest first in Rivers State, where we have this crisis rather than a nationwide process? But of course, there are national issues that were raised, like the Cybercrime Act and then economic hardship. But how do you address, these other conversations?
Well, you see, the murky waters of politics. This is a typical, whether you like it or not, in concerning the state of Rivers, the state of emergency declared in Rivers. You and I cannot tell for real what would have been the aftermath of how it was going. Nigerians, we tend to forget, we had a president before this who did not have time to be involved in national issues. In fact, he was always not aware. That was his style. Are you getting me? He didn't have the temerity to make bold decisions. Yes, the state of emergency had been thrown in Rivers, and so what? For that, I feel that it is politics in another level altogether. I tell you most solemnly, if the president has stayed back, fold his arm, and allow Rivers to go up in flame, it's the same Nigerians who begin to say he should have taken a bold step. He should have responded to the issue. I feel that this was a masterstroke, in my own opinion. Yes, there may be disagreements here and there. People may tend to, but I tell you most solemnly, ever since the state of emergency was declared in Rivers, we now have peace in that region. It brought total. It's like, okay, so what? Okay, let everybody go and rest, go and think straight. Since this is your state, how can you want to mess up with your own state? Let's be very fair. In all honesty, whether Governor Fubara himself, I think this is God trying to readdress issues that he did not look at ab initio. That show of beginning from his ungratefulness, then coupled with his attempt to undermine the legislature, and then trying to now balkanize the machinery of government. Are you getting me? Now taking radical positions that were singling him out for destruction. Those positions were radical. They were not diplomatic. They were more radical than diplomatic. And you don't do that at the level of a state and with the kind of personalities that are involved in the war ab initio. What I expected was for him to see how It can create, okay, even if you fell out with your godfather, can't you align? These guys are your brothers. These state assembly members are your brothers. You cannot tell me they all have prizes tied to their necks. They all have things that you can hold them to, and they would, at the end of the day, help you neutralize whatever situation was on ground. But you decided to look away, and you can see the repercussion. What we can do to Mr. President is to appeal to ensure that he calls after whatever time or what. It should be more of an appeal, because for me, to be very honest, the position, the state of emergency was like a one-time settler of all the disputes. You know, there was no need to now begin to look, say, okay, this one is right, this one is left, this one is wrong, this one is that. The matter was brought flat, and I'm sure these guys are already knowing that power is very, very transient, and like a vapor, it can disappear at every point in time.
Okay, not to digress into reverse crisis as a whole, still on protest, but I'm sure that you've heard that before we agree on a protest, at least we must have, looked at other measures, other ways of, appealing, or maybe coming to appeal to the government, maybe dialogue and other ways to, lay our concerns before the. Do you think that we've explored other options before, or the protest is best?
Have you heard the phrase in Nigeria, all join? All join. Have you heard that?
Obviously.
Okay, so there is no proper way. In fact, the Nigeria situation gives you an improper approach. If you want to follow a straight-jacketed approach, you will lose it. Are you getting me? At the point that you are thinking that you are already master and you have captured the process, anything can happen. So it gives for, we are diverse. So we should also apply diverse ways in resolving our issues. Are you getting me? The fact that there's a protest does not leave out negotiation, does not leave out dialogue. So, but you cannot say those who have mastered the act of protest as a way of trying to send the right signal. That's why you and I are talking in studio today, because these guys have been able to kind of trigger the process, kind of catalyze whatever, so that people are now more aware that there was a national protest addressing these issues. So that's why we are here. So it does not leave out the place of dialogue at all.
Okay, well, you also agree with me that this protest, if we resort to protest maybe without dialogue or before dialogue, could erupt into something different. Like we see yesterday, where police were firing tear gas at these protesters, it could have become violent and could have been another thing.
But these guys were not violent. You see, the problem is in Nigeria, you can never tell to what extent, and that's why the security apparatus, you can see they are putting their effort where it doesn't matter. And then another thing is that I will appeal to my comrade brothers, to those who are, that it should not be towards antagonizing those in power. It should be towards the system, because the system is what is bringing us to this point. We have a structure that has not given us anything to rely on. Are you getting me? It is what we are suffering is systemic. I tell you most certainly, if you take even the protesters and put some of them in government, there's a likelihood that without proper orientation, they will continue the same pedestal like those who were there before them. So that's why it is a systematic situation that we find ourselves, and we must look for ways that are far beyond just mere rhetorics, just mere using one approach. You feel that, okay, if I fight police, or police think that if they now spray water and all that and that, see the whole drama. If it was a protest, it was a protest, and it should be seen as that. It should not devolve into looting, gangsterism, backstabbing, or trying to create a situation that will become an emergency. And I also understand on the part of the police, this is the reason why, for them, because they are not forward looking, they are looking at the immediate and their experience in the past. They try to first dispel these guys before thinking about the mission or trying to engage them. You see the challenge. So we are caught in between of overtime experience, what people believe has happened. You remember the NSAS, you know how it ended. Remember, every protest is always ending in some level of violence. And so the police are also trying to devise a new way of trying to avoid some of these violence before they happen.
Okay. I'm just going to ask you this last question because of our time. What are the expected outcomes from these protests? What do you think would happen after, for example, the protest is going on, we're having conversations around the protest. What do we expect from government and relevant agencies following this?
Well, the government has rolled out a few programs, especially they are talking about the youth conference and the rest of it. They are trying to create means of empowerment as a way of soft landing, palliatives and the rest. But that is not enough. And I feel that it is time for government to see how they can ameliorate the harsh economic realities as a start. Nigerians are very resilient. This is about 2 years now that this government has been in power. And we are supposed to begin to see the signposts, the roadmap, the definite positions. Yes, we agree. We are not totally saying they are not. To a large extent, the courage to even take away subsidy is not no Nigerian has faulted that yet. What the rationale behind that was long overdue, and so we're expecting that. Nigerians don't demand too much. Nigerians want to see a level playing field where it does not look, because it looks like there's the gap between the rich and the poor is getting more broader, and that is affecting the ability for those who are here to understand those who are here. We are gradually drifting away, drifting apart. It looks like there's no country any longer, and so government should be able to communicate better to the people. What are the efforts? What are the hopes that they can depend on? And what's at the timeline with regards to the fruition, coming into fruition of some of these seeds that they have sown, and whether from the economic recovery plan that they have to the investment they have made that are people oriented, to the opportunities that are to be created for businessmen and for those in the private sector to leverage on to ensure that the economy comes back to full swing, at least to a certain level, a management level where the value of the naira can appreciate further. So that you imagine what you spend on feeding in as a family. If you have a family of about 10 persons, like some of us do, that are living with us in, so you can imagine what that means. So that has further put pressure, and we better rise up to the occasion.
We better rise up to the occasion. I think that's a good place to leave the conversation at. We hope that the government would take up some of these contributions. We have been speaking with Comrade Ogaku Dominic, who is a civil rights advocate. He has been helping us make better sense of the protest, civil society demanding critical reforms. Well, that's how much we can take on our second conversation. Many thanks for joining me on the program. We definitely hope to have you again on the show. We'll take a quick break now, and when we return, myself and Uyagbomofwe will wrap up the conversation. Please stay with us.
know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
Policies and political actors are in the news every day, all day. And on our part, we guide you through the noise and get you to the heart of the matter. Big Talk is your home of all-angle analysis of the top political stories. Airing weekdays on Global TV, 7 p.m. Big Talk, engaging and insightful.
Stay informed, stay healthy, stay empowered. Join Queen Agaba every Thursday, 11:30 a.m. on Health Guide as she takes you through topical discussions from nutrition, mental health to fitness to family planning and battling chronic illnesses with top professionals, expert advice and practical solutions to today's most pressing health issues. We bring you the knowledge and tools to take control of your health. Only on Global TV. Do you know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
Policies and political actors are in the news every day, all day. And on our part, we guide you through the noise and get you to the heart of the matter. Big Talk is your home of all-angle analysis of the top political stories. Airing weekdays on Global TV, 7 p.m. Big Talk, engaging and insightful.
Stay informed, stay healthy, stay empowered. Join Queen Agaba every Thursday, 11:30 a.m. on Health Guide as she takes you through topical discussions from nutrition, mental health to fitness to family planning and battling chronic illnesses with top professionals, expert advice and practical solutions to today's most pressing health issues. We bring you the knowledge and tools to take control of your health. Only on Global TV.
Well, the protest of yesterday is an ongoing conversation, not just the demonstration itself, but the issues that were raised, which the demonstrators said were the basis for the agitation and what they basically demonstrated about yesterday. But a while ago, Queen and I were talking about the incident of the young lady who was killed on account of a scaffold in her compound that collapsed. And we're using that as a springboard of some kind to talk about the issue of due diligence. Doing due diligence, and I was talking particularly concerning substandard materials. How that you move into a house, supposed to be a new house, you're the first tenant out, the whole place smells new and all of that. But fast forward to 2 weeks, a few weeks into occupying that
apartment.
Yes, property, and then next thing you know is first is the faucet in the kitchen that breaks, next something in the toilet breaks, next thing the door handle or knobs starts to act up and all of that. And you realize that it's not you who is being careless or carefree, it's just a matter of substandard materials in play and things like that. And then you're wondering, who is supposed to do the due diligence? Is it the person investing in the house, or is it the person to whom the construction of that property was contracted, or is it the tenant who is coming to move into a new house, brand new as they call it, and things like that?
Yeah, the painful thing about having to live in a place where most of the materials used is substandard is loss. It's different when we talk about loss. You're talking about financial loss,
Right.
because you spend money repairing or fixing those substandard materials, not doorknob, to even your ceiling peeling or leaking, or one thing or the other. It's painful, but it's a different ball game entirely when we're not talking about human loss. Because aside from the fact that these supposedly avoidable acts, we can't avoid it by using standard materials rather than substandard materials, from whether the point of the contractors or whoever it is that are working in these, whether carpenters or whatever it is. It's painful when you have to lose a life, just like we saw in the news where a young lady, that scaffold where we're talking about the scaffold falling down, and then, but now I have been a victim of this same issue. It cuts across everybody, every person, whatever, every handyman, whatever it is you are doing, whether you're an electrician, even services. Now let's move away from, we're going to go back to, the materials itself, having to buy substandard materials. Our services now, for the ones that we can control, those of us who offer services, electrical services, plumbing services, carpentry services,
even welding,
services, fabrication, and all of those things. If we take our time, do our due diligence, fix whatever needs to be fixed properly, ensure that all ends are tied, no knots are loosed, you will be surprised the life you will be saving and the loss you will be avoiding for the individual who is paying for your services, and whoever is going to be involved. Now, an electrician came to my house years back. I asked him to fix my ceiling fan. He wasn't a trained electrician, just an electrician in the neighborhood who they probably refer to him as an electrician. And, because people call him an electrician, they call him around to come fix this. So I thought he was, a perfect person to come fix my ceiling fan. So he fixed that ceiling fan. And, after a few days, I was just sitting down. I think I was by my study or so. And then at an instant, I just heard, I don't know what happened. It happened like flash and fell down, and then I had a cut on my face here. That's why I have this scar here. To God be the glory, it wasn't on my eye, because it would have been bloody. It would have been a different case entirely. It would have cost me, spending more to treat it. But thank God, it has nothing to do with my eyes, but a scar here, which I treated, I paid and, treated and tried to manage up until now. But you see how painful it is when we have incompetent people. It's like when the Bible says you have a loose, it just makes things very difficult. And so I had to spend money, not just repairing or fixing. Of course, I took out that fan. I was afraid. I had phobia for fans. So you imagine the pain, the loss, the anxiety that you cause people, and all of this.
People are traumatized.
People are traumatized because of your services, because you will not do it. And it was after that experience I learned that, he was just, and then he never really learned how to be an electrician or something, or he never.
Damage had been done.
Now, away from the fact that damage had been done to the supposed customer, you could have been your life. You could have died in the process of trying to fix a bulb or something, touching a wire that you're not supposed to. But let's just think long term, that it circles back to us. You build a building, your relative is coming to rent that house where you did shabby work, and
Right.
before you know it, the building is collapsing and it's killing and it's costing lives, it's costing properties. So it takes, let's look at it in bigger term. When we take our time to do the right thing, buy standard materials, buy original materials, we would see it, even from builders. We have landlords and people who tell people, just do whatever it is that you can, because they're not the ones living there.
Just put the structure in place.
Yeah, just put the structure in place for us. Just use, But at the end of it, if that structure collapses, you are going to be spending more, having to,
Right.
resuscitate that structure, other than just doing a one-term original job, one-term good job. So let us try as much as we can. When we're going for things, let us go for original. We hear that, in the market, there are even no original, because right from time, these exporters tell the manufacturers when I think China has something for Nigerians. That's the reputation we've built for ourselves. They already know that once they're importing or they're exporting to Nigeria, it is of a particular quality. Can we stop it? And it's costing us. There's no year that goes by that we don't hear of skyscrapers or buildings, or particularly in certain areas, collapsing. Can we? And it's because there's a substandard material that is already for Nigerians. Once they are exporting, they know that this one is going to Africa or going to Nigeria. It cannot be of this quality. It is because of that.
Third world market.
Exactly. It's because of what we have set for ourselves over time. I think we can change that narrative, knowing that how much is going down the drain as a result of our maybe selfishness, negligence, carelessness.
Right.
We can't fix that.
It's very sad to say, but I mean, what can we do? There's a rule in carpentry that inspires me every other time I think about it. It says it's better to measure 10 times and cut once than to measure once and cut 10 times. I think carpenters understand that rule better than anyone else.
Absolutely.
There's no better way to do due diligence. It's better you take your time, get the thing done the right way, than to rush and then you're going back and forth and you're just showing to the rest of the world that you're incompetent. And now talking about this issue of, we go to Asia, including China, we bring in items, we bring in goods, consumables, on the basis that you just have to specify them for my country. They say as you lay your bed, so you lay on it. As you make your bed, so you lay on it. It is what it is now, right? A few years ago, I was talking with a friend in the UK, and he told me he was using a particular brand. There was a time when these brands of phone that would change people's voice. So it would change my voice to that of a lady and all that. This was as far back as 2011 or so. So I was like, hold on a second. I mean, you don't live here, you live in England. How did you get this kind of phone? Is it like you bought it from a shop? You needed to hear the kind of no that he gave me. He said, no, it was when I came to Nigeria, I bought it and brought it. I just visited Nigeria, so I bought it. What he was trying to tell me is that the standards where he lives, where he resides, is such that those things don't meet the required standards, so they can't come in. The only way he was able to bring it in was that he bought it in Nigeria. So you can't market those things, you can't ship them into England, right? What it means is that we must continue to take responsibility, be proactive, all right, continue to review our standards in such a way that we don't just become a dump site for every Tom, Dick, and Harry to bring all sorts here.
Absolutely. We must begin to define our standards, particularly. But the big question is, how do we begin? I think we should begin first as individuals.
Right.
Yeah. Those things we can say, there are things that we cannot control because this is already what is being shipped to us. This is already how it is. But we can start by, take for instance the electrician I gave example of. When we go to school, let's take proper responsibility for ourselves, ensure that we learn, and even before we begin to display or portray ourselves as professionals, let us know that, particularly in medicals, because today it's an electrician who I'm a victim of his incompetence. Tomorrow you can be a medical doctor. What am I saying? Who is a quack, and you're a victim of that same person's incompetence.
Right.
And another time you are a victim of a driver's incompetence. So what are those things that we can control? You can learn properly before you display yourself or portray yourself as a professional. Let us ensure that today we have auxiliary nurses, or what they call these nurses, who we have had countless amount of mishaps from them, a whole lot that are happening. Can we ensure that I just learned that you can, whatever your course is, you can be an auxiliary nurse or so, and you're even carrying out major procedures. which is not done, and then people are being, are becoming victims of this incompetence. So we must, as a hospital, because we learn that most private hospitals, because they don't want to pay more to qualified personnel, they want to cut costs, so they just train, maybe an accountant or. It's funny, but it's really very appalling. They just bring up somebody who has nothing to do with medicine, has no idea about
about the health profession,
and train this person for a few months, and then the person becomes a nurse who is whether certified or not, and begins to carry out major procedures. I mean, how did we get here? Because we want to cut costs, because we don't want to pay those professionals to do our jobs for us, and so we just bring in people who have no qualifications whatsoever. And at the end of the day, now the same thing falls back to what I was saying. At the end of the day, your hospital is closed down as a result of the negligence of these practices of these nurses, the incompetence that they bring in, which is costing you your name, the name of the hospital, your brand name, and then of course money. So it circles back, like you said, and I completely agree. It's better to measure whatever it is you're measuring 10 times and cut once than to cut once and then you have to measure back and forth. So that just sums it up. Let's just take our time to do the right things, so that at the long run, in the end of it all, we know that we're doing it once and for all. We know that we're safe. We don't have to circle back to it. I think that just sums it up.
That's brilliantly said, no doubt about that. This is the point where we'll say a big thank you to everyone who has been a part of the program today, and to also establish that the views of all our guests across all our programs, including here on Global Morning, are their opinions. I'm Muyag Mofewe.
And I'm Queen Agaba. Do have a beautiful